Yes, hello. Thanks, Duff. My name is Dietrich from Callas software. And yeah, this is supposed to be kind of a personal history of XMP, and I'm here together with our head of development.
Yeah.
Pronounce your name.
Oh, Ulrich Frotscher.
Because he had helped me to survive the last 7 years of my life with XMP a lot. So, and I thought it would be good to do that together with him. First question from my side, who of you has ever worked with the XMP? Yeah, this is a Callas software crew. But okay, all of you are somewhat familiar with XMP, or who is not familiar with XMP? Okay, so we can skip the presentation. No, this is just an overview. First, a little bit, very personal introduction of my life with XMP, how it all began. Then Ulrich will introduce you into the concepts, the technical concepts of XMP, and then it's about the PDF-based ISO standard like PDF-A, PDF-X, and what is XMP, and in which way is XMP related to this ISO standard. And then PDF-A, PDF extension schemas, Ulrich will do that introduction. And then we are, as you know, I think we have PDF software. What specific problems did we have when we wanted to validate and needed to validate XMP? Then Ulrich again will explain a little bit about the tools that are available for XMP, and then we will try to have a conclusion, and all of that in 45 minutes from now. Okay. Yes, how it all began. So my expectations for XMP were actually based on a project for which I've worked in Germany that was for ad transmission of advertisements for German newspapers, from agencies to newspapers. And that can, I believe, also serve as a typical use case of XMP. It was, the ads needed to be transmitted, and of course the sender of the ad had a user interface. At that time it was all ISDN based, and the user interface forced the user to enter some metadata that was associated with the document, with the advertisement, like when is the advertisement to be published in the newspaper and so forth. But the problem was that the guy who needed to transmit the advertisement didn't necessarily have all the information that was required. So sometimes it was just the creator of the advertisement, so he didn't know when it was booked for, and this was a problem. And so it was, the metadata was not available at the place where, or to the guy who actually transmitted the ad, and the same on the receiving side in the newspaper where the ad comes in, and all the information was there. So if it's good, it was there, but then the information was not just associated with the file, so that the processing stations afterwards didn't have access to that information anymore. So, and at that time I really thought, okay, it would be good to have metadata that would be firmly associated with the file, with the PDF file, for instance, and that would survive even file format conversions. So at that time it was Quark Express, and would just be nice to enter metadata within Quark Express, make a PDF file out of the Express file, and have the metadata in the in the PDF file. Then submit the PDF file to the newspaper, put the advertisement on the page in the newspaper, and still be able to see what metadata was inside of these ads. So it would even be, or should even be possible to embed the metadata into a bigger page, in this case a newspaper page with several advertisements. Then I ran into a guy called Olaf Drümmer, who was working for Callas Software. I was at that time working for ZMG, German newspaper marketing organization. And there was another company involved, Hermstedt. They did ICN adapters at that time. And we did a joint project that was called ETF, Electronic Ticket Format. And that should actually address all these issues that we have had. Who knows ETF? Who has ever worked with that?
Actually,
me.
I narrowed that. It was actually the first project that was assigned to me when I joined Callas Software. So.
Yeah, some time ago. It was 2000. But in 2001, Adobe came out with XMP, and that seemed to be the solution for all of my problems. So when I first heard about XMP, I was really excited about the features. But I immediately saw, so when I first tried to work with XMP, that it did some unexpected things, so it has some life by its own. It came with lots of explanation and was slightly more confusing than I expected beforehand. So, but it solved some of the issues that I had. And today, I can say, so I have learned a couple of details that I didn't really want to learn, so it was not that easy and straightforward as I had expected it to be. And sometimes it's kind of boring, so it's not easy to have a conversation about XMP on a party or so. So it may break conversations. And it's also not always easy to explain the matters of XMP to customers. So, but we all, including you, have to deal with that for now. So, and we will see how we will do that in this presentation. So this was kind of a preface, and now comes the technical stuff, and that is Ulrich's work.
Okay,
so.
Thank you. So I will walk you through the XMP data model and its concepts, so I will keep it short because most of you already know that. The data model describes the properties, namespaces, prefixes, property values. We'll say something about the serialization of XMP as RDF, and we'll tell you something about schemas. You can, yeah. So, and after that, we will come to the PDFA implications of the XMP standard. So, XMP is a language to describe metadata, and metadata always consists of three entities. It describes a resource, it has a name and a value. For example, this presentation is a PDF file. The resource would be the PDF file we are just looking at. It has a metadata property, DC creator, and this has a value. It's Dietrich.
Dietrich and Ulrich, actually.
Okay, so I wanted to keep it simple.
Okay. So I'm simple.
No, that wasn't the intention. So you could express that also in a simple sentence. The property name of resource is a property value, or in an example, the author of Moby Dick is Herman Melville. And you can do it in a more formal way if you write it in XMP. So in the XMP, you see it's an XML representation of the metadata, and you see the property name in magenta and the property value in blue, but you have no indication of the resource itself. So the resource is not part of the XMP metadata itself. It's just the resource is defined by the way the metadata is attached to the file. So if we would like to describe the document, this XMP metadata has to be in the metadata dictionary inside the catalog object of the PDF file, for example.
Yeah, or associated to the ad on a newspaper page. So
yes,
yeah.
It could be as well metadata for an image object, and then the association would be established by the location in the dictionary structure. So in this case, it would have to be inside the XObject image dictionary. Okay. Okay, the serialization. Oh, it's a
Serialization
model. So thank
I
you.
will
That's
take
a
that.
very difficult word for me.
I will do
Don't
that.
know why. So whenever you see it, you can speak it. Is in the resource description format, with which is an abstract format that has one defined serialization model in XML, Unicode, and it consists, roughly spoken, of 5 parts. It has an XMP package wrapper, that's the first line in the example. This wrapper is mainly for identifying the XML, the XMP stream inside the data format, because XMP is built for embedding in native data formats that not necessarily have to understand the XMP format, and therefore they have invented this XMP package wrapper to easily locate the XMP metadata. Okay, then comes an optional XMP meter tag that can be skipped. Inside there's a RDF tag that is part of the resource description format. It has to be there. And then comes a description tag. And the description tag is just a wrapper for all the properties inside the metadata. And in the description tag, we also see something that looks like a URL. That's the namespace URI for the properties used inside, and it defines also a namespace prefix for that URI. We'll come to that back later. Okay, and inside we have the DC format property consisting of the name and the value. Okay, namespace prefix I've mentioned before. It's kind of important, and it's also often a problem in XMP metadata if we come to validation. The namespace URI is the address of the property of the namespace. In this example, we have the Dublin core namespace. The prefix is the abbreviation for this URI, and there are some requirements. RDF requires that all names have to be in the namespace. The prefix is a local name for the URI inside the description tag, so you could you can use this prefix as placeholder or as abbreviation for the whole URI. And the namespace URI is a global unique ID for that property schema. And by this URI you have eindeutig a unique address for these properties.
So it's by means of a unique string, you just give it a unique meaning, yes. So that you can have another property creator somewhere in different namespace and just a different property.
Yeah, he could invent as well a creator property, but because it's in another namespace, it's a completely different property with a different meaning. Okay, and the namespace URI is probably not a URL you can navigate to with your internet browser. So don't expect to just enter the address and get some information about that schema. That's normally not the case. Okay, and one more implication or one more requirement is that the namespace URI has to be properly terminated. We have seen plenty of PDF files where that was a problem. And if that's not the case, it's not a valid namespace URI. Okay, so I've talked about property names and property values. And the property values have to have a data type. In XMP there are several predefined value type we have seen simple types so far there, but there are also structures, arrays, there are property qualifiers, language alternatives, and okay, simple types is easy: string, boolean, integer, structures, structures, data, arrays, lists of equally typed data. Property qualifiers are a little bit more complicated. That's some kind of metadata of metadata, properties of properties. And language alternatives are mainly for localized strings inside the XMP metadata. So I will not show all of these data types in detail, but only the simplest and the most complex one. So the simple value type is just very simple, also in the XML. It's just a property tag inside the description container with a namespace URI, a property name and a value. So just again, because it's often a problem, as you can see here, if the name or the address of this property is the namespace URI together with the with the property name, they are just concatenated to have a unique address, and if you have no proper termination of the URI, you couldn't imagine what the property name would be. It could be mat or format or a one format or 1.1 format. So if you have a proper termination, you know, okay, the last slash or the last hash mark must be the end of the URI.
That's the reason why the namespace needs to end with a slash or a hash.
Yeah, correctly. Okay, so language alternative looks a little bit more complex. We have also as well the property name, that's DC title in this case. We have a node for the alternative array. That's an array that describes alternatively to use data inside a list, and we have n list nodes that themselves again have a value. So in this case we have the value title or titel in English and German, and we have in this case property qualifiers at the bottom of the diagram. So the first property in the list has the xDefault value that is required also in the xalt alt language lang alt property type, and the German entry has the language qualifier for. So
xDefault is being displayed when no selection can be made, or the software just don't know which language.
Yeah.
And usually that's English.
Yeah. Normally the xDefault entry is English, and the English entry will not occur in the list. So the serialization of the metadata is a little bit more complex. You have the RDF alt tag and all the list elements inside that, and the property qualifiers are serialized as XML lang attributes. Okay. So if we come to the question, what does actual property actually mean? We will have to look it up in the so-called XMP schemas. So nobody knows what DC title really means. Okay, you could imagine it because it says title, okay. But where can you look at this? And these are the XMP schemas, and these schemas are predefined in the XMP specification. That's a list of all schemas that are predefined, and each of these schemas actually define a couple of individual properties. And we'll just show you the first page of the Dublin core schema. That's again from the XMP specification, and as you can see, it first defines the namespace URI. It says this namespace URI has a preferred namespace prefix. that's DC. And it has a list of properties that are defined. And we have the property name in the first column. We have a value type in the second column that just says, okay, maybe the DC format property is of MIME type, which is a simple type. It's just a string, but the MIME type, value type definition in the XMP specification throws some more limitations on this simple string. So the value types are as well defined in the XMP specification. Then we have a category. A property can either be external or internal. External means it has a meaning to human beings, and internal means it's more addressed to software, to machines. And we have a description, and that's a human-readable description, and that tells you what this property actually means or should be used for. So that was a quick walk through the XMP data structures.
Technical concept.
So back to the interesting stuff.
Okay, this is about PDF-based ISO standards and XMP. So first slide is about PDF-A and PDF-E. And when looking at PDF-A, one thing is that apparently we have several flavors. So in the first line it's PDF-A1, and PDF-A1 was based on the XMP specification that was valid at the time when PDF-A1 came out in 2005, and that was the specification as of January 2004. And it only had provisions for document-level metadata. PDF-E, which came slightly later, and just said with regards to the XMP that all requirements of PDF-A are also valid in PDF-E. However, in PDF-E was a newer specification of XMP referred, and that was the one of June 2005, and I have some examples later on why that is important. So why the XMP specification is not just a new specification, but that there are some relevant differences in the specifications. And then in PDF-A2 and PDF-A3, even a newer version of the XMP specification, but another XMP specification was referred to. So a different set of XMP metadata, and PDF-A2 also required that XMP is not just on the document level in accordance with the provisions, but also on object level. So in my example, also the ads on a newspaper page and the metadata that would have been associated with the ads would have to apply to these requirements. And PDF-A also required, and also PDF-E, that every all private or custom XMP metadata is explained in a so-called extension schema. Who knows about PDF-A extension schemas? Okay, great. Yeah, so, and this extension schema needs to be embedded in a PDF file. We will have an explanation about that later on. But first, the title says also the other kinds of PDF-based ISO standards, and these are covered on this slide. So PDF-X1A and PDF-X3 just don't know anything about XMP. They have some provisions regarding metadata, but that is all for the document level. And also none of these ISO standards requires the extension schema, so that is unique in PDF-A and PDF-E. PDF-X4 and PDF-XV, so PDF-X is for data exchange mainly in the graphics industry, graphics arts industry, and PDF-X4 and PDF-XV X5 require consistency on between document level metadata and XMP. So if you have the author entry in the document information metadata and in the XMP, then the value of this author, Ulrich, for instance, has to be the same. And also all XMP, that means also object level XMP, needs to be valid. That means it needs to be a valid XMP structure. And then there are some mandatory entries, but that is only in a very specific area in PDFX 5G, where metadata is being used in order to reference external content. So that is a very special thing. PDFVT for variable and transactional printing is based on PDFX4, and therefore all requirements as of PDFX4 are also valid for PDFVT. And PDFUA, universal accessibility, has only one requirement, and that requires the presence of the DC title, Dublin Core, a title so that a screen reader has something to read, so the title. Okay, extension schemas for PDFA. What is an extension schema? So XMP is an abbreviation for extensible markup platform. Metadata platform. Yeah. So important is it's extensible, so that you can define your own private metadata, your own custom metadata. But because PDFA as an archive file format wants to be complete, it requires that whenever you use custom metadata, that you have an explanation about the metadata at hand. That means embedded into the file. The XMP specification says, okay, you can define your own custom metadata, but then you should have kind of an explanation for that. So you should have kind of an extension schema, but they don't define how you would write that down. So you can just take a sheet of paper and write it down. But that is not good for archiving. So PDFA defines the means how to explain and describe your custom metadata in XMP language, so that you can write your description down in XMP language and embed that into the metadata and into your PDF file. Okay, and that's Ulrich now explaining and showing you how an extension schema can look like.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it was a good idea to have the PDF extension schema in the first place, but it meant a lot of work for people actually producing such schema in the real world, because there are no tools. And I will walk you through the process of creating a PDFA extension schema. So I have, as an example, I have a custom structure. I want to put into my metadata stream the normal properties from the predefined schemas are no match for my needs. So I decided to have this custom structure. It's a very special structure for this talk, because I wanted to embed metadata about the title of this presentation and the speaker. Again, so the title, 7 years with XMP, and the speaker, Dietrich von Seggern, and I have created a namespace for it and a namespace prefix, and now I want to make a PDFA file out of our presentation, and I don't want to lose our metadata, so that's a key point. So I need a PDF extension schema for that. So because there are no tools, I have to fire up the text editor and type it in. So here are the definitions of the parts of the PDF extension schema. I have in the first stage I have to create a extension schema container schema. That's fairly easy. It's just unordered list of schemas. So I put the schemas inside my schema container, and I have to define several things for my schema. I have to give it a description, I have to give it a namespace UI, I have to give it a preferred namespace prefix, I have to define a sequence of properties and probably value types. So here are the properties. I've just included one of them, and it's the same procedure for each of the stages. Mm-hmm. So after the properties, I have to define the value types. They come in the second bag for the value types, and because I have a structure type, I have to put value types inside this structured value type again. So that's looks pretty easy, but if you're actually doing it and trying to validate it with the PDF validator, you will most probably fail. And it's an iterative process, so after the 10th iteration, you get it right. So actually, I needed, I think, 5 iterations for this example. So this would work. And just in order to show you the dimensions, this is a metadata I wanted to describe the extended schema.
That, so
you don't have to read that.
Colors are enough.
you get the printouts, and this is the extension schema for the structure I just described. So it's a fairly difficult process to actually create such extension schemas.
For only 2 properties.
For only 2 properties in a structure. So actually it was only 1 property in a structured data type. Okay, so that was a fast walkthrough. I think if you actually have to work with this, you have to read the correct PDF-A specification, because
this presentation is not enough.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Okay, so back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, now a little bit more about what really can go wrong when you walk, or what problems you have when you deal with XMP, and mainly from our perspective as a validator, writer and provider, mainly PDF-A validator in this context. By the way, most of our work with XMP and extension schemas is not, as I thought in the very beginning, related to graphics arts and data exchange. It's mainly related to PDF-A, because PDF-A has so specific requirements there. And this is just one example. So what can really go wrong with XMP in real life? So I'm just using one example, and these are the crosswalk tables of the PDF-A specification. And as I've mentioned before, on the left-hand side you have the document information dictionary, and on the right-hand side you have the XMP, and PDF-A1 just says, okay, values have to match. So the entries for the properties on the left-hand side, the values, for instance, the title in the first row needs to match with the title, DC title entry in the XMP. That was PDF-A1. And this is a technical corrigendum 2 years later, because some things just went wrong in the first crosswalk table, and I have marked the differences in red here. And so just in the first row you can see, so that in the first version there was a DC title indicated as of type text, but in fact, it turned out that DC title is not just the text, it actually is a language alternative, because the title of a PDF file can be in the metadata in several languages. So in fact, the first PDF-A specification was not just right in this case, that needed to be corrected, and So one has written language alternative here.
Oh, that's a great idea to compare a string with,
Right.
a list. Huh?
Right. And then this did not work either because, so one had to correct this again, and so in PDF A2, this is now finally corrected. Again, just the first row, other rows are similar things or similar examples, and now it's really correct because the title entry cannot, which is just one text string in the document information dictionary, cannot be the same as a list of entries in XMP. Of course, it can only be the same as one item of this list of entries. So, and this one item is the X default entry, which is, as mentioned before, the default entry for the title. So this is just an example what problems you can have with all the specifics and details of XMP. Another example here are the differences between the versions of the XMP specifications. So we have I don't know, it's about 20 pages list of differences between XMP specifications, and for us as a vendor, that of course is sometimes an important question. So for instance, the first thing here, the Photoshop schema, there is some property type, what it is for doesn't matter in this context, but they've just changed the type, the value type from text to bag text. So from one text item into a couple of text items. And for a validation program, of course, a validation program that would want to validate whether this entry is valid needs to know on which XMP specification or on which XMP specification this particular PDF is based on. So, and what can a validation program do in such case if there is a backtext but the PDF is, for instance, older than 2005? Is it a problem or not? And the same was for this EXIF schema, which was a closed choice of integer beforehand and was then changed to text. Different thing are the data types. So there are frequently referenced specifications like the RFC documents and the locale entry, which is the like for Germany, so just an entry that indicates the language. It was previously based on RFC 1007-66 and then changed to 3066, and with between these RFCs a few new countries were born and new entries showed up. And what can you do with a validation program if there is an entry that is not listed in the RFC that was actually referenced from the XMP specification? And then another example where they just changed from height to width, the ratio from width to height. So, and that of course changed the complete meaning. Is it clear? So, and these are really, it's not just some funny things. So we really had to think about that and what can we do in such situations in a PDF A file, for instance. Yeah, this I have already mentioned. So the reference specifications, like for the locale entry, but also for MIME types. What is if a new program creates a new MIME type, a new file format, and then a PDF A file comes in and that has a MIME type entry, but this MIME type entry was not listed in the RFC. Does that mean the whole PDF A file is not a valid PDF file anymore? So, and after all these discussions, also with other validation vendors, we've decided to not validate data types in XMP. Only simple types. So we check whether an XMP property does use a simple type or a structure, and we check whether it's really a number which is supposed to be a number, or whether there is other characters that are not a number, and closed choices. And that's it. And these are frequent problems in real-world PDFs. So what is just XMPs that are coming around, and what is a frequent problem there? So first, all XMP needs to be UTF encoded, but that is actually not always the case. Like, for instance, for the copyright sign, if that is not the character code for that sign is not used, not within the range of valid UTF codes, then it's a problem. It's just wrong encoding, and it's not a valid PDFA file, for instance. And that is a frequent problem, not just for document level XMP, but even more frequent on the object level. Same to the missing package wrapper, where just the first line of XMP is missing, and that is also frequent on object level. Title, not using language alternative, but just a simple string, as mentioned before in the first PDFA specification, and also missing time zone entries in document info or XMP. So frequently you have in document information a creation date entry or so that does not have a time zone, but you have that in XMP, and that of course is not the same entry then, or the same value. Okay, one more Ulrich.
Okay, I've already mentioned that. Okay, we have to hurry up. Okay, so I will do. Here's the watch. Huh? Already mentioned that the support inside the XMP in the PDF tools are not very broad, and just compiled a few screenshots. So of course we have Adobe Acrobat. We have no editing. We have just viewing, importing, export. We have validation and extension schema for support with Preflight. As a developer, we have the PDF library. The PDF library itself can just locate, read, and write metadata, but it can no validate, and it has no schema support. We have the XMP toolkit, so once we have the XMP metadata, we can use the toolkit to parse the metadata. We can iterate, add, change, delete properties, but again, no validation and no schema support. And I think tomorrow there will be a talk about validation. That would be really interesting to add this new technology to this list of tools. So just Acrobat, you already know, you just have the document info and you can view the metadata. I think everybody knows that. Preflight allows you at least to validate PDF files with the PDFA validation files, and it gives you some indication about the problems. You have, maybe in this example, we have a custom property that is not properly defined in an extension schema. Okay, just skip that. So that's the extension schema editor in PDF APLoad. So that's the only software I know that can actually create PDFA extension schemas. And some words to the XMP toolkit. That is really a great library for doing XMP metadata as a programmer. So it is free available. It works on all platforms. Uses C++ bindings, and it can parse any valid XMP stream I have seen so far. So if it denies to parse, it almost every time has a real problem. And it is not so easy to write an XMP parser because RDF allows a lot of different kinds of serializations of the same data structures. So it's not an easy job to write an XMP parser. Okay. So I see we have to finish, so I will hand over to Dietrich for the conclusion.
Just a conclusion. So I really like the idea of XMP, so to define syntax and semantics in order to use metadata and data exchange between companies, not just within companies, but also independent from document companies, data exchange between companies. But to be honest, and that is my experience, in most real-life PDF processes, XMP is just not taken serious. So, for instance, most of PDFA converters would just remove invalid XMP. And I believe that this is just a problem because XMP, as XMP is just not taken serious. It cannot be practically used in data exchange because it's just being removed if it's not fit. So, and nobody really takes the hassle of writing correct XMP in the beginning. And so one can say, okay, in order to make XMP a solution, really, for the problem, one would need to make it a problem first in order to write the correct XMP metadata into the file in order to use it. And that is just the introduction to a next session about this topic from Stefan Maxwitz tomorrow morning. And I wouldn't have made this presentation just talking about problems if there wouldn't be a solution. So, and that is coming tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ulrich, thank you.